The first thing Lieutenant Arya Kane noticed wasn't the silence, it was the absence of human voices. The bridge of the Vigilant hummed with alien static, an ugly hiss that crawled through every damaged circuit. Outside the fractured viewport, the stars drifted like indifferent witnesses over the grave of Earth's last defense fleet. Humanity had lost. For now. She wiped the ash from her cheek and stared at the floating wreckage, thousands of ships, billions of lives, all gone in the span of 7 hours. The Valari called it pacification. To Arya, it was murder. Every whole fragment out there was a promise she meant to keep. A voice crackled through the comms. Lieutenant Kane, reactors are stable. Life support's at 40%. We can still move, barely. Chief Rogan's graveled tone steadied her. The man had been fighting since Mars fell, and he'd survived every battle by sheer stubbornness. Arya turned to him, her eyes hollow but unyielding. We move, she said. Set course for the outer debris field. We'll hide among the dead until the Valari clear the sector. Rogan hesitated. Hide? That's not what we do. We're not hiding, she replied. We're learning. The words tasted like iron. Humanity had always learned the hard way: fire, famine, war, extinction at the edges. Every time, they adapted. Every time, they came back sharper. She thought of her brother, one of the first soldiers vaporized during the orbital bombardment. The Valari claimed they were bringing galactic order. They'd said humans were too primitive to handle warp technology, too emotional to wield real power. But the Valari hadn't seen humanity adapt yet. They hadn't seen what desperation could teach. 2 days later, the Vigilant drifted among the frozen wrecks of a dozen human dreadnoughts. The ship's lights were dimmed to nothing. Only the faint blue glow of instruments painted Arya's face as she pored over a cracked datapad. Signal intercepts, she murmured. Valari patrols are sweeping every system within 3 jumps. They're looking for survivors. Rogan leaned on the console. Then we make sure they don't find any. Arya's eyes flicked up. Not yet. We can't run blind. I need data, engine frequencies, patrol routes, communication codes. We learn how they think before we strike. He gave a bitter laugh. You think you can outthink a species that's been at war for 10,000 years? They've never fought humans before, she said quietly. They don't know what fear feels like. A long silence followed. The ship creaked as if listening. 3 weeks crawled by. The Vigilant scavenged parts from shattered cruisers, rewired weapons, and siphoned power cells from the corpses of human ships. The crew, just 23 left alive, worked like ghosts, driven by something sharper than hope. Rogan came to Arya one night while she stared at the void. Command's gone, he said. No one's answering. We might be the last. Arya didn't look away from the stars. Then that means it's our job to remind the galaxy we exist. He studied her profile, the faint burned scars along her neck, the hollow endurance in her eyes. You sound like your father. She smiled for the first time in weeks, small, fleeting. He died trying to teach the Valari diplomacy. They answered with plasma. I'll teach them something else. Revenge? Adaptation? When the first Valari patrol entered the debris field, Arya was ready. She'd studied their flight formations, their reaction times, even how long it took them to process sensor anomalies. Humanity's surviving engineers had always said learning was their greatest weapon. Now it was their only one. Power to forward batteries, she ordered. Target the lead frigate. 1 shot, then drift silent. Rogan's hands danced over the console. Charging coil gun. 8 seconds. The alien ships glided through the wrecks, scanning the silence. Their sleek silver hulls reflected starlight like blades. Arya waited, pulse steady. When the crosshairs locked, she whispered, Fire! The Vigilant shuddered. A tungsten slug screamed into the void, invisible until impact. The Valari frigate exploded, no shields raised, no counterfire, just instant annihilation. Cut power! Arya snapped. The ship went dark. Only the soft sound of her breathing filled the command deck. Seconds stretched. The surviving Valari ships circled, scanning wildly. But the debris field was a maze of corpses and metal storms. After 10 minutes, they retreated. Rogan exhaled. You just made first blood in a lost war. No, Arya said. I just told the galaxy we're not finished. They scavenged from the wreck of the destroyed Valari ship. Its technology was elegant: crystalline processors, fluidic drives, energy weapons built for precision, not brutality. Arya watched human hands dissect alien circuits like surgeons dissecting an enemy's heart. Every piece we take, she said to the crew, we learn. Every weapon we fire, we improve. We'll make their war machines ours. A young technician, barely 20, hesitated. Lieutenant, what's the point? There's only a handful of us. Arya turned to him, voice low but fierce. You don't win a war by numbers. You win by making the enemy fear you. He nodded, swallowing hard. They all knew what she meant. The Valari didn't understand fear yet, but they would. Days turned to weeks. The Vigilant became a ghost ship, its hull patched with alien alloys, its engines whispering in Valari tones. Arya's crew learned faster than any species had a right to. They hacked into enemy signals, rewrote codes, learned how to spoof command frequencies. Soon, Valari patrols were shooting at phantoms of their own design. In the darkness of the command deck, Rogan watched her work. You're building something dangerous. I'm building memory, she said. So the next human generation knows how to fight back. If there is one, there will be. The message came unexpectedly, a faint human distress beacon from a mining moon called Kale 3. Survivors. Hundreds, maybe more. Arya stood over the flickering holomap. Coordinates are on the edge of Valari territory, she said. If we move now, we can reach them before the patrols. Rogan frowned. Or run straight into a fleet. We can't rebuild alone, she said. We need them. And they need to see what we've learned. She turned to her crew, eyes hard but bright. They wanted us extinct. They thought fear would make us break. Instead, it made us clever. Faster. Unforgiving. She looked out at the stars, cold, vast, uncaring. They'll learn what it means to corner humanity. The Vigilance engines lit for the first time in months, a thin blue flame cutting through the dark. Every sensor ping risked discovery. Every jump could mean death. But as the stars blurred into motion, Arya felt something stir beneath the exhaustion. It wasn't victory. Not yet. It was momentum. The galaxy thought the war was over. The Valari had written humanity's obituary in plasma and ash. But Arya Kane had just begun to write the correction. The Vigilant broke from warp with a shudder that rattled every bolt. The void ahead was a graveyard, again. Kale 3's orbit was cluttered with drifting satellites and the twisted skeletons of mining barges. The moon itself hung below, half swallowed by ash storms, a scar of its former life. Lieutenant Arya Kane stood on the bridge, jaw tight, eyes fixed on the flickering beacon signal pulsing weakly across the calm array. Humanity's last miners were down there, if they were still alive. Signal strength dropping, Rogan said, hunched over his console. If we don't get groundside in the next hour, we lose the trail. Arya's hand rested on the railing. Then we move fast. Bring us into low orbit. Prepare the shuttle. The crew didn't speak. They didn't have to. They'd all seen what happened to survivors before. Valari extermination squads didn't leave witnesses. The thought hung in the recycled air like static. Rogan grunted as he switched to landing protocols. You sure this isn't a trap? Valari love using distress beacons to flush out stragglers. Arya's gaze didn't waver. Maybe it is. Either way, we're going. He shook his head. You've got a death wish. No, she said quietly. I've got a reason. The shuttle cut through Kale 3's atmosphere in silence. The planet was a wasteland of rust-colored dust and shattered domes. Storms raged across the surface, scattering fine metal powder that shimmered like blood under the fading sun. As they descended, the beacon grew louder, an uneven pulse, erratic but human. Landing near coordinates 47 Alpha, Rogan said. Looks like an old processing outpost. Half buried. The shuttle hit ground hard, sending a plume of grit over its hull. The air outside was toxic. They sealed their helmets before stepping into the wasteland. The outpost was barely standing, corridors half collapsed, lights flickering like dying embers. Arya led the way, rifle raised, each step echoing through the hollow tunnels. Her HUD flickered with motion signatures, faint, distant. Then a voice cut through the static. Identify yourself! Arya froze. The voice was human. She lowered her weapon slightly. Lieutenant Arya Kane, Earth Fleet. We're survivors from the Vigilant. We picked up your beacon. Silence. Then footsteps approached, a group of men and women, gaunt, armed with improvised weapons. At their front stood a man in a tattered mining suit, his face lined with exhaustion and disbelief. Earth Fleet's gone, he said hoarsely. We saw the transmissions. Your ghosts. Arya's visor retracted. Then consider this a haunting. The man stared for a long moment, then managed a weak smile. Name's Darius Holt. Was chief engineer here before the Valari bombed the mines. You really came from orbit? From what's left of it, she said. How many of you are there? 200, maybe less. We've been underground, hiding from drones. Supplies are running low. Rogan scanned the area. Any Valari activity? None lately. They think we're dead. Arya looked around the shattered outpost, the faces hollowed by starvation and fear. She saw in them the same look she'd seen on every survivor, the question they didn't dare ask, what now? We can't stay here, she said. We need to move them. Build something that lasts. Holt frowned. Move them where? Every human colony's ash. You think you can fight the Valari with one ship? Arya met his gaze. Not yet. But we can start by making them bleed. Over the next days, the Vigilance crew worked alongside the miners. They fortified the outpost, repaired generators, and scavenged what they could. Arya coordinated everything, rations, weapons, even morale. At night, she met with Holt and Rogan in the old command center. Maps of Valari patrol routes flickered on the holotable. We can't just run anymore, Holt said. If we stay quiet, they'll forget we exist. That's what they want. Arya leaned forward. Then we remind them. They call us primitives? Fine. Let's show them what primitive ingenuity looks like. Rogan smirked. You've got something in mind. I've been studying their ships. Their energy cores run hot, too hot. You push them past tolerance, and the feedback chain detonates. If we can hijack one patrol ship, we can make it our weapon. Holt blinked. You want to steal a Valari ship? I want to make it human. The room went quiet. Then Rogan said, That's insane. So was surviving Mars, she replied. And we did that. The next attack came sooner than expected. Drones, dozens, descended on Kale 3, metallic wings slicing through the ash storm. The miners barely had time to scramble into defense positions. Contact North Ridge! Rogan shouted. Turrets online! Arya sprinted through the tunnels, barking orders. Hold positions! Target the wings, they're weak there. The first explosions tore through the outpost's walls. Dust filled the air. Holt was beside her, firing an old pulse rifle with a trembling hand. A drone burst through the ceiling, metal tendrils whipping forward. Arya rolled aside, aimed, and fired. The plasma bolt shattered its core. Rogan, status. 3 down, 7 left. We're pinned. Arya gritted her teeth. Redirect auxiliary power, now. Lights flickered, then a deep hum shook the ground. The miners' old mining lasers roared to life, searing through the drones in sweeping arcs. Within minutes, the assault was over. When the smoke cleared, the ground was littered with twisted metal. The humans, bleeding, exhausted, but alive, stood in stunned silence. Rogan approached her, helmet cracked, a grin cutting through the grime. Well, that was loud enough to wake every Valari within 2 systems. Good. Arya said. Let them come. Holt wiped blood from his forehead. You just painted a target on us. Then we hit them before they hit back. Later that night, in the flickering light of the command table, Arya outlined her plan. We use one of the drone's comm transmitters. Forge a distress code in Valari frequency. Lure a patrol ship into orbit. When they drop to investigate, we take it. Rogan finished, half smiling. Holt stared at her like she'd lost her mind. Even if we pull that off, what then? You can't crew a Valari ship with 200 half-starved miners. Arya's voice dropped. We don't need to crew it. We just need to send it home, armed. Rogan frowned. A suicide drone. An introduction, she corrected, to humanity's new way of fighting. Holt exhaled slowly, the weight of her words sinking in. You're serious? Completely. The beacon went out the next day, replaced by a forged Valari distress call. The Vigilant powered down all emissions, hidden behind KO-3's magnetic storms. Hours passed. Then sensors lit up. A Valari patrol ship, a sleek Hunter-class frigate, dropped from warp above the moon. Arya stood at the console, heart steady. They took the bait. Rogan grinned. You really want to do this? I want them to remember what happens when you underestimate humans. The crew went silent as she gave the final order. Engage. From the surface, the sky erupted. Mining lasers flared upward, striking the frigate's shields. The Vigilant surged from behind the moon, weapons hot. Their first barrage crippled the alien ship's engines. Arya's voice cut through the comms. Boarding pods, launch! The pods slammed into the Valari hull, cutting molten paths inside. Chaos followed, gunfire, screams, and the sound of humanity clawing back a fragment of its dignity. When the battle ended, the alien frigate burned silently in orbit. Human hands held its bridge. Rogan's voice came over comms, ragged but triumphant. Bridge secured. She's ours. Arya stared at the view of the distant stars through the shattered viewport. Then we're done hiding, she said softly. Time to teach the galaxy what learning fast really means. The captured Valari frigate hung in orbit like a wounded predator, black smoke trailing from its engines. Its hull still shimmered faintly with alien light, though human hands had begun to strip it bare. The moon below, KO-3, was quiet now, blanketed in the cold calm after battle. Humanity had scored its first true victory. But Arya Kane knew it was only the beginning. She stood on the bridge of the captured ship, still wearing her scorched armor. Around her, human engineers moved cautiously, dismantling Valari consoles and patching human systems into them with wires and grit. The air smelled of ozone and burnt insulation. Rogan stepped up beside her, helmet tucked under his arm. She's ugly inside. All fluidic circuits and crystal relays. Feels alive. Then it's time we make her ours, Arya said. Rename her. No Valari name should stain her hull. He smirked. Got something in mind? Arya looked at the viewport, at the silent stars. Retribution. Rogan's grin faded into a nod. Fitting. The name spread through the crew like a spark in dry grass. Retribution. A single word that felt like the first heartbeat of a reborn species. For 3 days, the crew of the Vigilant and the miners of KO-3 worked tirelessly to repair and retrofit the captured frigate. They ripped out alien guidance cores, replaced controls with human equivalents, and coded hybrid systems no engineer in the galaxy had ever dreamed of. Holt oversaw the power relays, his rough miner's hand steady on delicate alien tech. These Valari reactors run hot, too hot, he said. If we overload them, it'll melt half the ship. Arya smiled faintly. Then don't overload them. Just make them angry. She moved through the decks, watching human ingenuity reshape alien perfection into something raw and efficient. Humans didn't build for elegance, they built to survive. And every broken piece of technology here was becoming a weapon born from desperation and brilliance. By the end of the week, Retribution could fly. Barely. Rogan leaned back in the captain's chair, stretching his shoulders. Engine stable, weapons online. She won't win a beauty contest, but she'll shoot straight. Arya stepped beside him, eyes fixed on the star map. Plot a course to Delta Pyros. That's where the Valari staging fleets operate. We hit them where they think they are safe. Rogan's expression darkened. That's a heavy nest, Lieutenant. They'll tear us apart. Not if we make them chase ghosts first, she replied. We'll use their own communication network against them. Feed them false readings, decoy signatures. Let them fight their own shadows while we strike their supply lines. Holt frowned. You're talking about starting a full rebellion. I'm talking about survival, she said. Rebellion's just a side effect. Hours later, the Retribution slipped from orbit under stealth drive, leaving Kale 3 behind. On the surface, hundreds of survivors watched the blue flare vanish into the night sky. For the first time in months, they believed humanity might have a future. Inside the ship, Arya watched the Valari code scroll across the comm screen, encrypted data streams her team had learned to mimic. It had taken weeks of observation, thousands of intercepted transmissions, and a terrifying amount of guesswork. Now, the Retribution spoke fluent Valari. Message sent, Rogan said. Looks like an emergency report from one of their lost ships. Good, Arya murmured. They'll come looking for us. And when they do, we'll already be somewhere they don't expect. The ambush came at the edge of the Delta Pyros belt. The Valari convoy, 5 transports and 2 escorts, was moving in tight formation, their silvery hulls gliding through clouds of cosmic dust. The Retribution lurked in the shadows of an asteroid, engines cold, weapons charged. Arya studied their pattern carefully, every calculation deliberate. Patrol frequencies predictable, she said. Escort ships sweep forward every 6 minutes, leaving the transports exposed. Rogan grinned. Old habits die hard, even for the mighty Valari. Timing's everything, she said. Fire coil guns on my mark. Target their lead escort, then move in for the kill. The bridge went silent except for the hum of power building through the ship's news systems. 3, 2, 1, fire. The first shot was invisible, until it tore through the void. A tungsten slug punched clean through the Valari escort, its shields collapsing in a flare of blue fire. Before the second ship could react, plasma burst from the Retribution's side cannons gutted its engines. Forward thrusters, now! The captured ship surged out of the asteroid's shadow, human fury powering every move. Lock on to the transports! Rogan barked. Fire control online! The Retribution unleashed a storm of light. Valari freighters exploded in a cascade of plasma and debris. Within minutes, the entire convoy was gone, 7 enemy ships erased by a single stolen human vessel. When silence returned, Rogan exhaled, chest heaving. We did it! Against 7 of them. We actually did it. Arya didn't smile. They'll know soon. This will draw their fleets. Holt glanced back from engineering. Then what's next? She turned to him, eyes fierce. We spread the fire. Every human survivor, every hidden outpost, we tell them what we did. We show them the Valari can bleed. Word traveled fast. Through coded bursts and hijacked channels, whispers spread across the shattered remnants of human colonies. The impossible had happened. A human ship had destroyed a Valari convoy. For the first time since the fall of Earth, hope wasn't a memory. It was a weapon. Across mining moons, derelict stations, and forgotten bunkers, humans began to stir. Engineers reactivated long-dead satellites. Soldiers reassembled armor. Refugees became fighters. The phrase that echoed through every transmission was the same. They learned fast. The Valari response came swiftly. Arya expected it. Within days, their fleets began hunting across the sector, purging every asteroid belt and moon in their path. But the humans were no longer running blind. They had patterns. They had data. And they had Arya Kane. She stood in the dim light of the bridge, scanning intercepted reports. They're pulling ships from the inner colonies. That means they're overextending. Rogan raised an eyebrow. You want to hit the colonies? Not yet. We make them paranoid first. Every system they protect, we strike somewhere else. No pattern. No logic. Just chaos. Holt leaned forward. That's not war. That's terror. Arya looked at him. Exactly. They terrorized us. Now it's their turn to feel hunted. The campaign lasted a month. The Retribution became a legend, a phantom warship striking without warning, vanishing into the dark. Human cells everywhere adopted her tactics, turning sabotage into an art. The Valari Empire, unaccustomed to resistance from inferiors, found itself bleeding resources across dozens of worlds. Each victory fed the next. Each attack taught them something new. The humans weren't just surviving anymore, they were evolving in real time. During one quiet moment between jumps, Rogan joined Arya by the viewport. The stars stretched endlessly, cold and distant. You ever wonder how far this goes? He asked softly. Arya didn't answer immediately. Until they stop underestimating us. And then? She turned toward him, her voice low. Then we make them pay for every name they erased. But deep in the darkness, far beyond their reach, the Valari High Command was already adapting. Reports of the Retribution had reached the Valari Primarch himself. To them, humanity was no longer a nuisance. They were an infection. And the Empire had decided to cleanse it, for good. Even as Arya planned her next strike, a fleet unlike any humanity had ever faced was already moving toward her coordinates. And this time, the galaxy would see just how fast they could learn too. The stars around Delta Pyros burned brighter than usual, each one a distant reminder of how small humans once were. Now, those same stars witnessed something different, a human ship prowling in the dark, hunted yet unbroken. The Retribution drifted among the magnetic storms of the system's twin suns, its hull scarred, engines whispering. Every sensor reported the same truth: the Valari were coming. Lieutenant Arya Kane stood alone on the observation deck, the faint hum of machinery echoing behind her. The void outside shimmered with distant movement, Valari ships slipping into position, hundreds of them. The largest fleet she had ever seen. The Empire was finished underestimating humanity. Rogan's boots clanged on the floor as he approached. They've found us, he said. 6 capital cruisers, at least 30 escorts. More inbound from the warp gate. Arya didn't turn. Good. Saves us the effort of hunting them. He frowned. You can't fight that. We don't have the numbers, not even close. We don't need numbers, she said. We need leverage. Rogan crossed his arms. You're talking about the core. She nodded. Down in the engineering deck, Holt had been working on something reckless, turning the Valari ship's unstable energy matrix into a weapon. A controlled cascade failure that could vaporize a fleet if triggered at the right distance. Suicide by physics. The ultimate act of defiance. Even if it works, Rogan said, we'd be vaporized too. Arya finally turned, eyes calm, voice steady. Then let's make sure it's worth the cost. In the command center, the crew moved with mechanical focus. Alarms pulsed red. The hum of reactors grew louder. The Valari fleet was less than 20 minutes out. On the holotable, their ships formed an elegant crescent, perfect formation, textbook execution. They thought this would be an execution, not a battle. Arya activated the comm system. All hands, she said. The Valari are here. You know what's coming. You've all seen what they do to planets that resist. They burn them, erase them, call it order. But not this time. Her voice steadied as she looked over her people, miners, soldiers, engineers, survivors who had turned grief into weaponry. They think we're running out of options. They think this is where humanity dies. But they've forgotten who we are. We adapt. We endure. And when we fall, we make damn sure the ground remembers. A quiet hum filled the bridge. No one spoke. They didn't need to. Each of them had already made their choice. Minutes later, the Retribution broke from the cover of the storm clouds and glided toward the oncoming fleet. Her hybrid hull shimmered, half alien, half human, all defiance. The Valari flagship, a mountain of silver and light, hailed them in its cold, melodic language. Unidentified vessel. The alien voice intoned through static. Power down your engines and surrender. You will be granted a merciful dissolution. Rogan leaned toward Arya. Merciful dissolution. That's a new one. Arya smiled faintly. Send them a message. What kind? The human kind. Rogan tapped the console. Across open space, a single transmission burst from the Retribution, an image of Earth burning, followed by 4 words, simple and clear. We learned from you. The Valari fleet opened fire. Space erupted. Plasma lances screamed through the void, turning darkness into stormlight. The Retribution rolled hard, its stolen shields flaring blue. The first salvo tore away half her dorsal plating. Holt's voice came through the comms, strained with static. Shields down to 40%. Reactors running hot, too hot. Hold it together. Arya barked. Rogan, fire all batteries. The ship's cannons roared, coil guns flinging metal faster than light. Valari escorts shattered under the kinetic barrage, ships built for precision now shredded by human brutality. The Retribution weaved through the chaos, a ghost wrapped in fire. Rogan shouted over the alarms. 2 down! But they're closing in, 3 cruisers on our 6. Arya's fingers flew across the console. Bring up the magnetic mines. Deploy at Vector 920. Those are untested. Everything we have is untested. The mines released, a cloud of polarized charges that detonated as the Valari cruisers advanced. The explosion was blinding. Metal screamed across the void. 2 cruisers vanished in molten vapor. The third spun out of formation, its engines crippled. For a heartbeat, the bridge erupted in cheers. Then Holt's voice cut through again, ragged and urgent. Core's destabilizing. The overload started whether we want it or not. Rogan swore. We're sitting on a bomb. Arya turned to the viewport. The Valari flagship loomed larger now, its guns glowing like dying suns. She could see their formation breaking, read the confusion in their movements. For the first time, the Valari weren't calm. They were afraid. Prepare the data burst, she said. Rogan blinked. You're sending the specs? All of it. Every blueprint, every code, every weakness we've learned. Send it to every human frequency within 10 systems. He hesitated. Once it's out, there's no going back. That's the point. The transmission launched, a cascade of stolen Valari secrets beaming into the dark, spreading faster than any fleet could chase. Humanity's knowledge, their vengeance, their survival, set free. The Retribution's decks began to shake. Sparks rained from the ceiling. Holt's voice was hoarse. Core's at critical. 30 seconds. Arya steadied herself against the railing. Rogan, get the escape pods ready. He stared at her. You're not coming, are you? There's no time. Someone needs to keep the ship steady. He grabbed her arm. To hell with that. You've done enough. She met his eyes, calm, unwavering. Not yet. Someone has to make sure they remember this moment. He didn't argue further. He knew that look. It was the same one she'd worn since Earth fell. Reluctantly, he saluted. See you on the other side, Lieutenant. Go, she said softly. That's an order. Rogan and the others evacuated, the pods shooting into the void like silver tears. Arya turned back to the viewport, alone now, the stars burning through the fractures in the glass. The Valari flagship filled her vision. Let's finish the lesson, she whispered. From afar, those who escaped saw it, the moment when the Retribution ignited. A flare brighter than any sunrise, a storm of energy cascading through the Valari formation. Dozens of ships vanished in white fire. The shockwave rippled across the system, carving light into the void. When it faded, nothing remained but silence and debris drifting where the fleet once stood. The Retribution was gone. For hours, the survivors drifted, listening to the static hum of the comms. Then Holt's voice broke through. The data packet went through. We're receiving responses from Luna Base, Titan, even Mars. They got the message. Rogan stared into the stars. Then she did it. Across the galaxy, humanity rose. Every hidden colony, every bunker, every outpost that had fallen silent reignited with purpose. They built ships from wrecks, weapons from scraps, hope from the ashes. And in every whispered story, one name burned brighter than the rest: Arya Kane, the woman who taught the galaxy to fear humanity again. The Valari called the event the Pyro's Cataclysm. Humans called it the beginning. Because for the first time in history, the galaxy understood the truth. Humans don't win by strength. They win by learning faster than anyone else alive. And now, the galaxy would have to learn that lesson too.